Welcome back to StabtheDragon Productions for episode number 202 as we continue our brief Canadian whiskey tournament. This is where I try to figure out which of the most common 80 proof Canadian whiskeys I like or dislike the most. It is Monday, February 17th, 2025, and it is, 53 degrees, something like that, here in Fort Worth, Texas. The local private club, of which I'm a member, has 4 of these whiskeys, these Canadian whiskeys. And I may get to do a whiskey tasting there later in the year, hopefully. The whiskeys I am looking at are Crown Royal Fine Deluxe and Canadian Club 1858, Canadian Mist, and Seagram's VO. Now I have tossed in Black Velvet into the mix just for fun. I have reviewed each of these whiskeys, and now I am in the tournament phase, which includes a loser's bracket. The rules. While I do examine the histories of these whiskeys a bit, then I look at the bottle, label, and marketing some. The whiskeys really stand or fall on their taste, mouthfeel, burn, and finish. Drinkability is the key. I ask myself this question: which of these 2 whiskeys would I prefer 3 out of 5 nights if offered both whiskeys 5 nights in a row? That's all it is. Now, this taste test is done blind in blacked out Glencairn glasses, and part of the fun is to see if I can correctly guess which whiskey is which. So far, I'm failing that miserably with Canadian whiskeys. I just don't know my Canadian whiskeys very well. The winner of this contest tonight gets a cocktail at the end. Now, the tournament so far: Canadian Club beat Canadian Mist in match 1. Seagram's VO beat Crown Royal in a stunning upset in match number 2. So then I went to the losers bracket, and that began last week with Canadian Mist taking on Crown, and Crown lost again. I was shocked. Tonight, we have this 5th entry, Black Velvet, taking on Crown Royal. I reviewed Black Velvet 3 years ago on this very date in 2022, February 17th. So that one is that one is separate from all these other Canadian whiskeys I've been studying right now. So it's not lumped in with the same. But I didn't want to review it again, so there you go. Each of these whiskeys has, in fact, spent time on the top 20 list for best-selling whiskeys in America. But in recent years, only Crown seems to have been in the top 3 repeatedly, and now the others actually seem to be drifting off the list altogether. At one point, Black Velvet was up there in the top 10, and I think Black Velvet may have been like the number 3 best-selling Canadian whiskey. Crown's certainly the best-selling Canadian whiskey. Each of these, except Mist, Canadian Club, VO, Crown, and Black Velvet, each of these has at one time or another been towards the top of the list in our history. Mist has never been up very high, but it has been in the top 20. Now, though, bourbon's making a resurgence on those lists, it seems. And so the last list that I checked didn't even have any scotches in the top 20. That was phenomenal. But see, the lists, they vary, depends on who does the list. As far as best-selling whiskeys, there's not really an authoritative list. But, I mean, for Johnny Walker not even to be on the list, that was shocking. But that list was 2024, and I don't remember the source, but I checked it just the other day. And Crown was the only Canadian whiskey listed. Jameson was the only Irish, and there was no scotches. The rest were bourbons. That was actually kind of different. I don't remember who made that list. So at any rate, let's get on to tonight's competitors. Black Velvet coming in at 80 proof, aged for 3 years. It says so on the bottle. Or if you go to the website, it gives you some convoluted thing that says they're aged for 8 years, and then they're aged again for 3 years, and that gives you a total of 11 years. And the website for Black Velvet was really terrible, and it was confusing. According to the bottle, it says blended at birth. Canadian whiskey dates this, or this whiskey was dated, depending on the sources, 1951, 1949, and 1946. Different dates were given for the beginning of this whiskey. Now, part of the confusion is this whiskey started off as called Black Label, and then it was changed to Black Velvet. So I don't know. I mean, researching the history of whiskeys is about as interesting as researching the top 20 list. Is who you read, who you check is going to give you a different story. But this Black Velvet comes to us from Lethbridge, Alberta. And the whiskey says that it's aged in new charred oak barrels like bourbon. Some of the stories, but it's not bourbon. It's not a Canadian bourbon. But new charred oak barrels is bourbon like. But the way Canada does their whiskeys is that they're aged the different grains are aged separately, and then they're married together. But with Black Velvet, it says blended at birth, so they blend them quickly. I don't know, but I think they're maybe aged in charred oak barrels and then switched to something else along the way. So it's not like bourbon. Some of the stories of this whiskey mention that it was serving on submarines in the Navy, Canadian or U.S. Navy. I'm not sure. Did Canada have submarines? I'm not sure about that. This whiskey has won 3 medals in 2023, though, so this is interesting. Gold at the John Barleycorn Awards. Best Canadian Whiskey Ascot Awards. Now, that's pretty significant. Both of those are. And Consumer Choice at the SIP Awards. Prices. Total Wine doesn't sell this in a 750, but for a 1.75, it's $16.99. Goody Goody, $10.59, and Specs, $10.94. I got this at Goody Goody. 3 years ago, I rated this whiskey as 80 points and a B+ for drinkability, which really matches the Crown Royal rating that I gave, an 81 and a B+. So tonight's competition may be close. We'll see. Crown Royal Fine Deluxe. This 80 proof, non-age stated blend is made from about 50 whiskeys in Gimli, Manitoba, on the shores of Lake Winnipeg. This whiskey was developed by Samuel Bronfman at Seagram's for the 1939 visit by King George VI. It is presently owned by Diageo, a British company. It costs $24.99 at Total Wine. Goody Goody, $24.99. Specs, $23.97, all in Fort Worth. Previously in the tournament, this whiskey lost to Seagram's VO and to Canadian Mist in 2 upsets. And in my review of Crown Royal, again, I gave it a score of 81 and a drinkability score of B+. So on to the contest. Well, first of all, the Crown came in a Dallas Cowboys box. There you go. And I don't know if that's common, if every NFL team gets a box. Like Kansas City Chiefs, do they have a Crown Royal box? Philadelphia Eagles, do they have a Crown Royal box? I don't know. And is it just football? Do they do baseball boxes? Do they do basketball? NASCAR boxes? I don't know. Have to look at that. All right, so let's on to the contest. We've reviewed the history just a little bit. And again, the Black Velvet history was just convoluted and didn't make sense. They couldn't get their story straight. So I think that Crown definitely has the better history. Crown really has an excellent history. So Crown wins this point. Bottle label and marketing, though, I definitely remember Black Velvet ads from when I was a kid back in the 60s and 70s. And, you had the blonde lady in a black satin dress laying on a black sofa or something, you know. But here recently, I haven't seen any black velvet ads. And I did a search online, and the most recent ad online was from 7 years ago. It was kind of a rebranding effort. It had a couple of dudes on motorcycles pulling up to look like a storage unit, and they crack open a bottle of black velvet, and one guy's drinking it from the bottle. So that's a real classy ad. Uh, as if motorcycle guys like black velvet. I don't know. Who knows? But with the Crown, that there was recent ads. Okay, several recent ads with the Crown. They're current, up to date, and actually, you know, pretty decent ads. So, you know, when you're number one, you can afford to advertise better, I guess. Uh, and it's got a better looking bottle, I think, and packaging. So advantage to Crown Royal as far as bottle, label, and marketing. And again, I don't see any Black Velvet Cowboys boxes. Composition, Black Velvet again managed to fumble the football when you compare their composition on their website. You know, the aging, again, like I mentioned earlier, was not presented clearly. The bottle says 3 years, but the website, you get a total of 11 years, which I find hard to believe. I think maybe what they meant to say is some barrels they use might be up to 11 years. I don't know. But both of these are Canadian blends, you know, so there's all kinds of stuff that can be added here. Caramel coloring, even. You know, they have a law in Canada that, you know, like if you have a wine barrel and there's a little bit of wine left in, you can throw the whiskey in there. You know, there's a very tiny percent of extra stuff that can go into Canadian whiskeys. So who knows? Who knows what is in these? So composition, though, I'm going to have to give to Crown because Black Velvet showed clear confusion. Clear confusion. I guess that's an oxymoron. Appearance of the whiskeys, I'm going to say they're about equal. You know, slightly different shades of brown there. But see, part of the problem is the glass on the Crown bottle is not real clear. The glass is kind of almost, it's a little bit opaque. And so that obscures, you know, that darkens the whiskey a little bit, whereas the Black Velvet is clear. So I'm going to say that's appearance is a draw. So let's move on now to the nose. Black Velvet is in glass number 1. Crown is in glass number 2. And I don't know which is which. I will start on my left. Just a pleasant general whiskey smell. Nothing spectacular. Nothing offensive, but, you know, vague. Now my nose is next to useless, but oh well. I try. One on my right. Perhaps even less than the one on the left. You know, so I'm going to say the one on the left is the winner of nosing. So for taste, then, what that means is I'll start with the weaker one on my right. Again, number 1 is Black Velvet. Number 2 is Crown. And right off the bat, I think that's Black Velvet. Right out of the gate. Black Velvet's got a pretty unique taste. And it's funny when you look at a lot of reviews, a lot of the whiskey nerds really don't like either of these whiskeys, but Black Velvet especially gets a lot of hate. Not sure why that is. All right, we'll go to the one on the left. I don't want to be definitive, but I think that one on the right, I think that's Black Velvet. But here's the left. Yeah, that's Crown. So, all right, as far as taste goes, the one on the right has got a lot more going on. Mouthfeel. Okay, so the one on the right really gets more flavor. Mouthfeel. I think the one on the right has got the mouthfeel and burn and finish as well. So I'm gonna call it when I see it. The one on the right is the winner, and I think this is glass number 1, Black Velvet. And it is. There you go, glass number 1, Black Velvet beats Crown Royal. We have a winner. Well, that's pretty condemning of Crown Royal, which has lost every single match. And I did not anticipate that. Now, going into this, I did think Canadian Club would be the champion. Then I decided to add Black Velvet. So now I'm going to say Black Velvet and Canadian Club, that'll be a tight match. There you go. But right now, Black Velvet is the winner. So, does Black Velvet deserve a cocktail? I think so. Stand by. I'll be back with a cocktail. Okay, I am back with a Velvet Manhattan. Now, I'm not a huge cocktail guy, and out of the cocktails I've had, Manhattans tend to be my least favorite. Drinkable, but it's just not my favorite. I'm learning to make them, so we'll see if I've got the chemistry right here. Basically 2 shots of Black Velvet and about half of a shot of the vermouth, and then I don't know if you can see it in there, but there is a cherry. I do put an ice cube in. I've learned that that seems to help me with these things. And there, it's not bad. It's not as sweet as an old-fashioned. And the fortified wine aspect kind of, I don't know. Vermouth and I may not have an understanding yet. But nonetheless, the Black Velvet, that works in there. I think that's decent. All right, what's next on Stab the Dragon? Well, coming up is the anniversary of the Battle of the Alamo and Texas Independence Day. So I think the next 2 episodes I do will probably be Texas whiskies. So we will take a break from our Canadian studies and do a couple of weeks of Texas studies, and then we'll come back to finish the Canadian. But for now, this is Stab the Dragon. Out here.